The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul. You're next.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, so ordered.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, last week the House narrowly passed a watered-down House concurrent resolution originally designed to endorse President Clinton's plan to send U.S. troops to Kosovo. A House concurrent resolution, whether strong or weak, has no effect of law. It is merely a sense of Congress statement. If last week's meager debate and vote are construed as merely an endorsement without dissent of Clinton's policy in Yugoslavia, the procedure will prove a net negative. It will not be seen as a congressional challenge to unconstitutional presidential war power. If, however, the debate is interpreted as a serious effort to start the process to restore congressional prerogatives, it may yet be seen as a small step in the right direction. We cannot know with certainty which it will be. That will depend on what Congress does in the future. Presently, those of us who argued for congressional responsibility with regards to declaring war and deploying troops cannot be satisfied that the trend of the last 50 years has been reversed. Since World War II, the war power has fallen into the hands of our presidents, with Congress doing little to insist on its own constitutional responsibility. From Korea and Vietnam to Bosnia and Kosovo, we have permitted our presidents to wag the Congress, generating a perception that the United States can and should police the world. Instead of authority to move troops and fight wars coming from the people through a vote of their congressional representatives, we now permit our presidents to cite NATO declarations and UN resolutions. This is even more exasperating, knowing that upon joining both NATO and the United Nations, it was made explicitly clear that no loss of sovereignty would occur, and all legislative bodies of member states would retain their legal authority to give or deny support for any proposed military action. Today, it's erroneously taken for granted that the President has authority to move troops and fight wars without congressional approval. It would be nice to believe that this vote on Kosovo was a serious step in the direction of Congress once again reasserting its responsibility for committing U.S. troops abroad. But the President has already notified Congress that regardless of our sense of Congress resolution, he intends to do what he thinks is right, not what is legal and constitutional, only what he decides for himself. Even with this watered-down endorsement of troop deployment with various conditions listed, the day after the headlines blared that Congress approves troop deployments to Kosovo. If Congress is serious about this issue, it must do more. First, Congress cannot, in this instance, exert its responsibility through a House concurrent resolution. The President can and will ignore this token effort. If Congress decides that we should not become engaged in the civil war in Serbia, we must deny the funds for that purpose. That we can do. Our presidents have assumed the war power, but as of yet, Congress still controls the purse. Any effort on our part to enter a civil war in a country 5,000 miles away for the purpose of guaranteeing autonomy and or a separate state against the avowed objections of the leaders of that country involved, that is Yugoslavia, can and will lead to a long-term serious problem for us. Our policy, whether it's with Iraq or Serbia, of demanding that if certain actions aren't forthcoming, we will unleash massive bombing as attack on them, I find reprehensible, immoral, illegal, and unconstitutional. We are seen as a world bully, and a growing anti-American hatred is the result. This policy cannot contribute to long-term peace. Political instability will result, and innocent people will suffer. The billions we have spent bombing Iraq, along with sanctions, have solidified Saddam Hussein's power while causing the suffering and deaths of hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqi children. Our policy in Kosovo will be no more fruitful. The recent flare-up of violence in Serbia has been blamed on the United States' plan to send troops to the region. The Serbs have expressed rage at the possibility that NATO would invade their country with a plan to reward the questionable Kosovo Liberation Army. If ever a case could be made for the wisdom of non-intervention, it is here. Who wants to defend all that the KLA has done and at the same time justify a NATO invasion of a sovereign nation for the purpose of supporting secession? This violence is all America's fault, one Yugoslavian was quoted as saying, and who wants to defend Milosovic? Every argument given for our bombing Serbia is one that could be used to support the establishment of Kurdistan. Actually, a stronger case can be made to support an independent Kurdistan since their country was taken from them by outsiders drawing borders after World War I. But how would Turkey feel about that? Yet the case could be made that the mistreatment of the Kurds by Saddam Hussein and others compel us to do something to help, since we are pretending that our role is an act of world humanitarian policeman.
The gentleman's time has expired.